Good Saturday morning and happy game day, Auburn fans. It's finally here, September 4th. We've been counting down the days, but game day on the Plains has arrived. Welcome into AL.com Auburn pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli. He's Matt Scalisi. And Matt, it's beautiful weather in Alabama. I'm not a meteorologist. I talk sports, but I did look at the forecast tonight in Auburn. It's going to be like in the 60s. I mean, it feels like fall. It's like the football gods came to us today and said, like, here you go. People that live in Alabama, just enjoy this one.
And I know a lot of folks are this will be their first time back on the Plains since a lot of crazy stuff happened. And so, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better return to this comfort, this comforting, familiar environment. We're all ready to go back to doing things that make us happy again. And this is going to be the ideal situation to go into in Auburn today.
Ideal in a lot of ways, not only in the weather, but ideal in the fact that they're playing Akron. All right, so we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Akron, but let's just get it straight. Akron is going to show up to the game, and they are going to have
they will technically be there. Yes,
they're going to be there, and they're going to be the opponent. They're going to go home with a really nice check and a really nice loss. Okay, so that we have that out in the open, but a huge opportunity for Brian Harsin to come into this game and kind of set the tone to begin his era on the Plains. A completely different type of hire than I think what a lot of folks thought Auburn was going to do after moving on from Gus Malzahn. Brought in a guy who's, maybe a little bit, just a different type of guy, not in a bad way, just different type than maybe what people thought they were going to expect there. And so I think it's a perfect opportunity for Harsin to kind of take claim here and make a statement early on.
Absolutely. A good, I was talking to my colleague Wes Seiner about this earlier this week, and just saying, when there's so much new, when there's so many new things you have to figure out about your identity as a team and your players and which guys are even going to be the best fit out there on the field, you really, the ideal way to do it outside of a scrimmage is, the next step up. Let's play somebody that relatively low risk. They're totally outmatched talent-wise, but it's enough of a challenge that we are actually going to learn something about ourselves in the process of almost certainly winning this game. And I think that's the perfect way to step into a new tenure for a head coach, is to have this just, very straightforward track to have to run, and you'll learn what you do well. Maybe you'll learn a few things that you're not doing well enough yet that you can identify on film. And really Auburn will have that the first 2 weeks of this season.
Yeah, it'll really be a good measuring stick for the Tigers and for Brian Harsin, and to really see the pieces come together. There's one thing that's really stuck out to me in the offseason when it comes to when we've spoken to Brian Harsin, his frustration a little bit almost with the offensive line unit. Is something that he's talked about quite a bit. And he said, admittedly, that he has a very high expectation as an offensive guy for the guys up front, protecting the quarterback, run blocking, the whole nine. But to Harsin's benefit, Bo Nix. And Bo Nix, we've seen him at the highest of highs, and we've seen him, at South Carolina last year. There's a lot of things that we've seen from Bo Nix, but I think that because that quarterback room is looking different than it was a year ago, we're going to see a different type of Bo Nix early in this season. He wants to make a statement. This is my team. This is my junior season, and there is no question who is in charge here when it comes to the offense.
I think you need somebody to step up in this offense and become the leader. And obviously Bo Nix would be the perfect person to be that leader, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's Tank Bigsby becomes the leader of this offense emotionally and gets these guys to buy into what Harsin wants them to do. Yeah. I do think it's really important for the quarterback to be that guy. It makes everything work better and flow more smoothly. It certainly, I think, would help Brian Harsin do what he likes to do offensively, which is to stretch the field, which would open everything else up. I think if they're able to use Bo Nix's arm, use some very young, very inexperienced but talented receivers to make some things happen down the field, it really does help with some of those issues that you mentioned with the offensive line. Now, obviously, it all works together. You can't, you're only as good as your weakest unit on that offense. But I think if they're able to make some things happen in less than ideal situations, it starts to put the defense on its heels a little bit. It starts to make everything flow a little more smoothly. So the offensive line is going to take some time probably to figure out who they are. Can this offense give them that time early on this season? I think that's going to be a real key to how the rest of the year goes.
Yeah, these first couple of weeks, I think something to keep an eye on is, there is no quarterback battle on the Plains. Okay, Bo Nix is the starter. He went to SEC Media Days. He's been the starter the last 2 seasons. He's going to be the starter. But LSU transfer TJ Finley is going to play snaps these first couple of weeks. We're going to see both guys under center, both guys, throughout the entire game, throughout the game. I think it's interesting to see what type of measuring stick that will be for Brian Harsin when it comes to, all right, how do I want to move forward? Harsin has said, there's only one quarterback until there's not, and that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, it's Bo Nix until it's not. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what type of role TJ Finley does play in these early games when it comes to seeing on-field action that actually matters.
And a great opportunity for week 1 and 2, because we know that these are opponents that Auburn should win easily and be far ahead of late in the game. So you can afford to get TJ Finley in these games, and we can see what he is capable of. I will say this, Simone, I'm not a beat writer. I'm not there every single day. The beat writers aren't there every single day either. They don't have unfettered access, but there's some real good chatter about TJ Finley and what he's been doing in fall camp. I'm not saying like you said, he's not an immediate threat to take the job from Bo Nix, but there's a lot of confidence in him right now, and there's a lot of good feelings from that Auburn program about what he would be capable of if they needed him to play. And I think even if you don't end up needing him to start, I think it gives everybody confidence to have a competent backup in there. It makes you less likely to put a banged up starting quarterback on the field. But the other part of it is it actually pushes Bo Nix to keep improving and being his best in practice every day. I don't think it's necessarily about having something hanging over your head and knowing that every mistake you make could cost you your job. That can be a negative. But I do think it makes guys better when they're being pushed in practice legitimately for their job. And I think TJ Finley sounds like so far the buzz is that he's good enough to do that to Bo Nix.
Yeah, I mean, he came in to Auburn because he was told that he would have an opportunity to be that guy. He's not that guy yet. I mean, he came in kind of late, obviously, with the transfer portal and that entire situation. But I think he's going to have a shot to at least see the field, prove himself down the road, if necessary, we get into SEC play. Last year, Bo Nix, looking at the stats, again, over 2,400 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. We've seen Nix make some mistakes throughout. I think one thing that's going to benefit him, you mentioned this name a minute ago, is Tank Bigsby, the returning freshman player of the year in the SEC. 834 yards, 5 scores. And when he gets going, he gets going. I think we're really going to want to see Mike Bobo run the football, because there have been times in his career he has been criticized for not running the football very often. This is like, I could be the offensive coordinator and know what to call. Hand the ball off.
And it's a good group of running backs too, which I think is key, because if you want Tank Bigsby to be around for the Iron Bowl, which he wasn't last year, because arguably he had to be relied upon a little too heavily and he got banged up. That's going to happen to any running back if they get too many snaps. Yeah. So it's about managing your elite talent too. So I think, you want to get Tank going early in the season. You also want to manage that a little bit. You don't want to wear him out. You want to keep him fresh and healthy. And Auburn has some really good depth at the running back position right now. They have lost a couple of guys over the last couple of years, but you still have Sean Shivers back there. You still have a couple of young guys that are really promising and that we've heard some good stuff about too. So rotate them all through. I think the second half of this game today will actually be really fun for Auburn fans, because they're going to get to see some of these new names out there and getting snaps for once.
Yeah, huge opportunity for the incoming guys, transfer guys, younger guys. But I think, once again, the strength of this Auburn team, and this might not light up the scoreboard, it might not be super exciting, but it is once again going to be the defense. We've seen this the last couple of years. And Derek Mason is, I don't want to say proven winner, okay, because he had the toughest job in the SEC for a lot of
years. Not
as
a head coach.
Not as a head coach, but the guy is a dang good coach. And to have a guy, I think Brian Harsin checked every single box when he made that hire in Derek Mason as defensive coordinator. But Derek Mason stepping into a job that I think anybody would like to have. Matt, you might want to be the DC over at Auburn. You have guys like Jacoby Owen Peppo, veterans on the defensive line, Roger McCreary in the secondary, just guys all over the field that you want to see when you are an SEC program that has high expectations. They're the type of dudes that you want to have on that side of the ball.
A great collection of talent. I know we've all here in the comments, I'm sure, had criticisms of Gus Malzahn at some point in the last few years regarding his ability to bring enough talent into Auburn. It wasn't an issue on the defensive side of the ball. Auburn and Kevin Steele and Will Muschamp before that, they have been recruiting at an elite level on defense for a long time now. They have a lot of great guys back there, and now they also have some really experienced guys coming back on defense as well. So there's a really good situation for this Auburn team defensively for Derek Mason to step into. And as you mentioned, look, even when they weren't winning games, Vanderbilt's defense was tough. They were not a pushover. That they really put together some great units on that side of the ball. And before that, he had a ton of success at Stanford doing that. So I think this is a guy who actually has had a pretty good amount of success coaching defense with non-elite talent. And so this is possibly the best group of players that Derek Mason has ever gotten to coach on the defensive side of the ball.
At least as of late.
Yeah, I'm sure he's excited about it.
Yeah, I know Harsin is as well. I mean, I think that, when he made the two hires in Bobo and Mason, he knew exactly what he was doing, especially in the recruiting game when it comes to guys who understand what it takes to recruit at an elite level in the SEC. Again, I understand it's Vanderbilt, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is still recruiting in the SEC. So I think that he knew those were going to be key hires for him, obviously, and being a coordinator position. But when you get guys who have had that SEC experience and you're a guy coming from a school that's not in the Southeastern Conference, it's a different type of football. Brian Harsin might, take his lickings early on. He might not get kind of a baptism by fire a little bit early in the SEC when it comes to some of these top caliber teams, and realizing, all right, this is a different type of talent than what I've seen at Boise State in the last couple of years. But looking at some keys to the game, goals to the game for Auburn, Matt, in a game like this, in an opponent like Akron, not having an injury, walking away from this game exactly how you walked into this game is so significant. And I think that, in the back of Harsin's mind, every coach there on the sideline for the Tigers know exactly what they need to do to protect guys and to walk off the field exactly how they came on the field.
Roster management, I mean, it plays in just like what we were talking about with the running backs as well. It's something that an experienced head coach, and now Brian Harsin has done this for quite a few years. He knows how to handle this type of situation. He knows that would you make a big splash? Would you get on Sports Center if you run up the score and win, 70-0? Maybe. But what's the cost? What's the risk of doing that? And this game is about getting some excitement going for the program for sure, but it's also about making sure that you're developing depth and you are building your team to be strong for the entire season, because as you just mentioned, this season is going to be tough. I don't think that every pregame and postgame show that we're going to do this year, Simone, is going to be as happy as the ones we're doing today for Auburn. I'm not going to lie to our fans here and say that I think that this is going to be an undefeated season for Auburn. That doesn't mean that it can't be a really valuable season for Auburn where they build this program into something stronger in the future. And it starts today. And I think you're right. It's about keeping these guys healthy and making sure that this team is built for a season-long run. Yeah.
With that said, I mean, like you see some comments in there, believing for a great season. And that's really the the goal of this. That's really the thought process in this fan base. I think that so many years, not to try to diss on Gus, because Gus did a lot of good things. And to his credit, Auburn has a very, very tough schedule. That's no secret. I mean, year in and year out, Auburn is playing one of the toughest schedules in college football. And Brian Harsin's not going to be tasked with that. But I think that Auburn fans have such a hopeful confidence for things to be the way that they have seen them before on the plains. And I think that that's okay. I think with that, you have to understand that when guys are learning a completely new scheme on both sides of the ball, that takes some time. Like you just said, Matt, it takes some time. Is this going to be an undefeated season for Auburn? Probably not. Do I think that some key things could happen throughout the SEC that could make fans be fired up about Brian Harsin? Absolutely.
Yep. I totally agree. I think this is about figuring out what the strength of a Brian Harsin-led Auburn program is going to be. What is that going to look like? What we did learn that about Gus pretty early. Yeah. We said this is what this guy does, right? This is when it's going well, this is what an Auburn Gus Malzahn team looks like.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most curious about. I want to see, what is it about a Brian Harsin-led Auburn team that scares Alabama, LSU, Georgia? What makes them worried about going into a game against a Brian Harsin-coached Auburn team? And that's what's got to be established over the course of this year, probably more along the lines of next year is when we'll see a more clear version of what that's going to look like.
Yep. We'll get our first taste of it today at 6 o'clock on the Plains. Auburn hosts Akron. Shouldn't be much of a competition when it comes to the actual game on the field, but still, football is back. It's September 4th. Been counting down to this day for a very long time. The weather is somewhat fall-like in Alabama today. Just the stars are aligning for game day, college football Saturday. Doesn't get any better than that. So the Brian Harsin era kicks off at 6 o'clock. Auburn fans, I know you're fired up about it, Matt.
Can't wait. And we will be back here post-game, probably about a half an hour after the game ends, to break down everything that we saw, get your comments, get your thoughts on the first game of the Brian Harsin era at Auburn, and we will join you when that happens. And thanks again to our sponsor from Medical Properties Trust. And everybody have a great game day.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart